I can't believe this still needs to be said, but no, it is not Islamophobic to support the Iranian revolutionaries. And the whole term Islamophobia or Islamophobic is fucking made up and fake, anyways. But after decades of having Islam forcibly imposed on them by the state, the Iranian people are fighting for something very simple: the freedom to live their lives. But because the regime oppressing them is Islamic, many people in the West, especially on the American left, have completely short circuited. Their brains have stopped functioning because they have convinced themselves that Islam is a race rather than an ideology, that it's synonymous with being Arab or Middle Eastern, or worse, that it's just a brown religion. So in their worldview, opposing Islamic regime must automatically be bigotry. Layered on top of that is a rigid, very rigid, race-based oppressor oppressed framework where only white people can be oppressors and only non-white people can be victims. In that framework, authoritarianism only exists when Europeans colonize non-Europeans. The Iranian Revolution shatters those assumptions. It doesn't fit into this sort of neat little box they've created to explain the entire world. They can't comprehend that not everyone in the Middle East is Muslim. They won't accept that non-white people can be authoritarian oppressors. And they absolutely refuse to grapple with the fact that millions of Iranians are risking their lives for the very freedom that Western activists dismiss as colonialist and oppressive. So the left really has two options: either reconsider their premise or avoid thinking about this altogether. And so from what I've seen or what we've seen, they have chosen sort of the easy way out, because it's easier to just pretend that supporting the Iranian revolution is bigoted than to confront the fact that they're siding with the regime that violates everything they claim to stand for. It's a bunch of unearned moral virtue. And let's be clear, of course we should support the Iranian people. This is a 6,000-year-old civilization that gave humanity algebra and one of the earliest declarations of human rights, now being crushed by an Islamist regime that has only been in power for 47 years. This isn't a niche sort of political issue. This is a human issue. Since 1979, the Islamic Republic has arrested tens of thousands of women for not wearing hijabs. They've tortured, raped, and killed protesters. They've murdered children in the streets. People are literally selling their organs to survive. There are overwhelming moral reasons to support them. But after Iraq and Afghanistan, Americans understandably ask, should we get involved militarily? And here's the uncomfortable truth in geopolitics: morality is only the surface. Self-interest is the substance. And of course, the Islamic regime, the Islamic Republic, poses two major problems for the United States. First, it sponsors terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah and destabilizes the entire region, which is obviously bad for security and also bad for business. Second, it's backed by China and Russia. China buys the vast majority of Iran's oil, and Iran supplies Russia, with drones used in Ukraine. That raises the risk of escalation and even global conflict. And so we already know China and Russia's support is transactional. When Iran sort of played nuclear poker, the bluff was called and neither superpower came running to defend them. So what actually can we do? Well, first, get Iranian people internet access, right? Starlink works when it isn't jammed. We need hardware, cyber pressure, and real effort to break the regime's information blackout. Second, of course, offer immunity to Iranian military officers who defect. Every successful revolution hinges on one thing: the military switching sides. That the Iranian people are already doing the heroic work. The least we can do is make sure they're not fighting in the dark. And finally, to the Western activists subtly opposed to helping Iran, the same people who demanded intervention everywhere else, let me be blunt: you don't know what Iranians want because you've never listened to them. If you had, you hear millions chanting for freedom, for help, for the end of this regime. You'd know why people are shouting Javid Shah, I think I'm saying that right, whatever, in the streets. You get my point. In the streets, you know how deeply they reject the Khomeinist lies you keep repeating. You don't know their history. You do not get to colonize their suffering with your ideology, right? Because it's so interesting to see the same people for the past 2 years were demanding intervention in Gaza. Yes, suddenly the shoe was on the other foot when Israel's on the other side of the story. Interesting how that works. That's because they do not care about Iran. They care about their obsession with hating Israel, even at the cost of real human lives. This regime in Iran is guilty of all the things that the regime in Iran falsely accuses Israel of doing. Tens of thousands of Iranians slaughtered by the mullahs, and not one college protest, rally, or speech on behalf of those people who just want to be free and want peace with Israel. It has led to this sort of weird new level of Jew hatred, basically hating Iranians for risking their lives to oppose oppression and gain freedom because Jews support them. So really, good luck. Good luck explaining how millions of Iranians demanded intervention are all sort of Western stooges or it's some fucking Israel psyop. When this regime finally collapses, and God willing, it will, you won't be remembered as humanitarians. You'll be remembered as the people who sided with tyranny because reality didn't fit your narrative. And thank you for your time and attention. Patreon is the home of our exclusive community where we do bonus episodes, live streams, Q&As, and merch discounts, and so much more. Patreon is the #1 way to support this podcast and to support my mental health nonprofit called You Are Loved.